Today, we will talk about SHx and how it really fits in with what Ripple and XRP have done. And that's mainly because Stronghold has all of a sudden really picked up a lot of interest out of a lot of the all about XRP types. And while I'm not really complaining about that, it's just really interesting that very significant quote unquote XRP Army accounts all of a sudden talking about SHx at the exact same time. DAI, Digital Perspectives, and a number of others all started to talk about it at the exact same time. In my own opinion, it seems like the SHx Escrow was the main driver of that, because it's exactly what Ripple did with XRP in, I believe, 2017, and then the price of XRP went absolutely parabolic after that. It is also interesting because Ripple were some of the earliest investors in Stronghold, and Sean, Stronghold's chief technology officer, spent time there. I've talked a little bit about the SHx Escrow, but a lot of the details have actually come out. It appears as if they will release 1 billion tokens a month for 60 months, and the unused tokens will be relocked at the end of that 5-year span, which is confirmed by Stronghold as well. The timing is also interesting because even though they first began to talk about this in, I believe, October, November of 2024, they didn't really have any announcements or didn't really have anything that was publicly found on chain that would point to some kind of an escrow. And I just find it really interesting that all of a sudden they state that they are working on and rolling out this escrow strategy right before the FedWire ISO 222 cutover that just happened, which, just to be 100% clear, it's only the ISO 222 compliant messaging format that has actually started. I posted this a few weeks ago because I was actually planning on making this video probably 2 weeks ago at this point, but I'm really not too terribly interested in the community engagement with these kinds of fintech crypto companies. I would much rather them just do what they have to in order to create real value and not put themselves in a position, for example, in an AMA, that they're not really able to provide a lot of information on what they're actually working on, just because if they are in fact working on the things that they are implying and would make sense with all of the connections into Ripple and Stellar and the Federal Reserve itself, they're not really going to be able to talk about it. So I, for one, do not really care if they respond to posts, if they comment on things, if they do community AMAs. I would much rather have them put out curated information that actually explains what they have been doing. And with that said, I don't think that the AMAs do not have any value at all. I think we have been told a few things that are extremely helpful in each one. Here, they begin to talk about what a tier 1 listing could look like for SHx.
Well, actually, I do have a question for the community, because I actually want to know what everybody thinks is a tier 1 listing, because that could be many things to many people. So I just want to start a conversation about that. What is considered to be a tier 1 listing?
And I immediately thought that that was kind of a strange thing to ask. If it's not just for the purpose of engaging who was on that call, then that could have some different kinds of implications. The point that was made about venues instead of exchanges was interesting as well. And they expanded on there are particular geographies that are of high priority to watch right now. I have speculated that they have involvement in Germany, which I still haven't actually put out yet. And there also is some potential involvement in Spain. And that begins to make a lot of sense, because a venue is more like a potential application of real world adoption, whereas an exchange is a pretty concentrated public venue. So there could be some room for interpretation where they are actually trying to explain what is happening behind the scenes. And if you consider the timing of the escrow rollout pretty closely coincided with Headwire transitioning over into ISO 222 messaging, some things begin to line up even more.
We're still exploring merchant settlement, things like global payouts, which make, markets that have high inflation or kind of serve markets that have high inflation or unreliable banking infrastructure. And, we're exploring things like treasury operations, which kind of streamlines liquidity and reconciliation.
And in terms of the tokenomics, especially as a result of the escrow, the people who actually hold SHx are extremely comparable to the kind of numbers that we saw with XRP before the escrow was established in 17. So the huge spike in interest from the XRP Army and the comparison there is pretty logical, which is essentially rehashed here. One thing that has always been a sticking point for a lot of people is the circulating supply of SHx. And now that we have about 60% of the total supply locked up in escrow, with 1 billion coming out every month, the tokenomics are almost automatically appealing.
Yeah, there's a good one here. It's from Mind Crypto.
With that said, the real uncertainty around the circulating supply is in regards to the amounts on the Ethereum chain.
Yeah, there's a good one here. It's from Mind Crypto. A few minutes ago asked, when are you likely to implement a public bridge between Stellar and the third question? Very timely. This is something that we've wanted to have solved for some time, or at least it's been on my wish list. And really, it was one of the larger projects after escrow that I wanted to have the team looking at. There's a few things with circulating supply, as reported by some of the data aggregators out there like CoinMarketCap. This is a well-known issue where there's a discrepancy between our self-calculated circulating supply and CoinMarketCap's. So there's a few things that I think we will improve there as the immediate next step, including things like merging the Ethereum circulating supply even with our own representation. It's likely that, well, we know that the self-reporting supply even is actually slightly greater because of the circulating supply on Ethereum, which is not currently counted in that number. So that's the immediate next thing to solve. But then after that, I think looking at the bridging is going to be what we need to look at. And I believe this morning you could see some interesting discrepancies between the markets on Ethereum and Stellar. That is something we need to solve. So I think that you will probably see us coming up with, if not implementation, at least a roadmap for how we will be able to solve that sometime this year.
What ultimately appears as if there could be approximately an additional 2 billion SHx in circulation right now. And at this point, I want to review what has been put out there about the specifics of the escrow as explained by Stronghold.
We locked 60 billion SHx in a completely immutable smart contract. Just code that automatically manages our token supply for the next 5 years and rolling into the years thereafter, whether we like the market conditions or not. I'm Tammy Camp, CEO of Stronghold, and this is your insider's guide to the future of transparent finance. Today, I want to walk you through the most significant commitment in Stronghold's history, a 60 billion SHx escrow system that fundamentally changes how responsible token treasury management should work. Here's exactly what we deployed. An escrow smart contract alongside 60 individual accounts on Stellar's smart contract platform, Soroban. Each account locks exactly 1 billion SHx and expires on the 15th of every month for the next 5 years. This creates what we call a rolling escrow ladder, a system that ensures long-term supply discipline while still providing measured token availability. We've locked our commitments into code that we literally cannot override. The market now knows exactly how much SHx becomes available and when. This is what accountability looks like when you build it into the system itself. Every aspect of this escrow system is completely transparent and trackable in real time on the blockchain. Anyone can verify our commitments, track our progress, and hold us accountable to what we've built. This is the kind of transparency that traditional finance talks about but rarely delivers. This escrow system sends a clear message. Stronghold is building for decades, not quarters. By locking 60 billion SHx under an immutable schedule, we're proving that our vision for the future centers on sustainable infrastructure. The full 60 billion SHx is now locked, and our first monthly release is scheduled for the 15th. We're building a public dashboard so anyone can track every aspect of this system in real time. At Stronghold, we believe that trust in finance should come from building systems that enforce what you promise. This 60 billion SHx escrow is our commitment encoded in a smart contract, operating for the next 5 years, whether it's convenient for us or not. Because the future of finance isn't built on promises. It's built on proof. If you want to track our escrow system in real time, the smart contract address is public on Seller Expert. Subscribe for more insights on how we're building transparent financial